sbagliata, messa fuori, c'è Pirlo, ancora Pirlo di tacco, tiro,
Hello and welcome to this week's SP Weekly AC Milan podcast. I'm your host, Samit Paul, and as always, I'm joined by Jason Brown. Jace, how you doing?
I'm good, mate. Very good.
Good, man. And the lineup wouldn't be complete without Jack Cowlin. Jack, how's things?
Yeah, all good, mate. Looking forward to talking about a European side. Absolutely,
mate. Good, man. Before we get started, if the listeners want to hear more from us throughout the week on Twitter, you can find me at SP_weekly. Jace is at SPweekly_Jace and Jack is at SPweekly_Jack. But fellas, on with the podcast. We'll look back at Milan's win over Bologna at the weekend and qualification for the Europa League qualifiers. We'll rate the season and of course we'll look at all the latest transfer talk. But first, let's cast our eyes back to that 3-0 win over Bologna. A much improved performance to start off with. I felt that Milan were playing with a bit more urgency. I think that because there was something to play for, there was something on the line, they got about Bologna from the off. Not saying by any means that it was a fluid, free-flowing and amazing performance, but I did feel there was a sort of change in mentality, if you like. I think they were definitely up for it compared to recent weeks, so that was a big positive. In terms of the goals, we had a lovely goal from Deulofeu, started and finished by the Spaniard. And I actually posted a video of the goal on Twitter, and I had the Barcelona crew out in full force. They're absolutely loving it. A lot of them were calling for him to go back. I'm not quite sure if they've been watching him consistently over the last few weeks.
YouTube fans.
Yeah. But they seem to be happy with him. Kazuki Honda, great free kick. And it turns out, as he confirmed this week, that it's a farewell from him. That was his last appearance at San Siro. He'll be leaving in the summer. But a great way to say goodbye. One of his trademark free kicks, so really pleased for him to go off on a positive note. And then after his horror miss in the first half, which I'm still cringing over, Lapadula managed to get himself on the score sheet as well and wrap things up, which was nice to see. So all round, performance result-wise, Milan got the job done, and no complaints from me on that front, so happy days. I want to talk a little bit more in depth about the formation. So Montella stuck with the 3-5-2. It's something that we touched on last week. I just feel that certain players are really suited to this system. I'll get your thoughts in a bit on who you're impressed with. But for me, kind of star performers, if you like, the ones that stood out. We had Vangioni on the left. I think the formation change has definitely suited him. He's strong in the tackle. Loves to run forwards and just overall all action, really good performance. Gustavo Gomez as part of the back three, I thought he was impressive. Bossed it in terms from a defensive perspective and had a little cheeky roundabout flick that San Siro went crazy over, which was nice to see as well. Romagnoli returning made a massive difference at Atalanta and this game. He's one of our top players, and it's really good to see him in form and ending the season strong. And then surprisingly, captain Montolivo, I thought he had a really good game. He's had a lot of stick in recent times, but that was a really good shift from him, and it was good to see as well that he can offer something moving forward, which is absolutely a positive. Jack, I'll come to you first. How did you rate the performance, the result? Did anybody stand out in particular for you? Obviously Deulofeu's goal, Honda's farewell free kick, but impressed with that performance on Sunday?
Yeah, mate, Mr. Honda, what a man! What class! That's a fitting way to go out, isn't it? I think, nice to leave on what's probably most attributed to him, isn't it? He can strike a ball, can't he? So that was classy. No, it was good. There's obviously a few concerns, certainly after Montella's comments the other week, where he said getting players up for these games can sometimes be an issue. It didn't seem at all that case this way. So, in this game, and yeah, it was really impressive. I think, you touched on it there, the Deulofeu, epic goal. It was just a lovely move and a great, calm, composed finish, which is what we've all been calling for, really, isn't it? That's what we've been wanting to show. I think the Barcelona fans, as you say, need to calm down a little bit, sort of sprinkling a bit of glitter on a whole lot of not so good stuff, I think, for himself. I think, you know, he's not been terrible or anything. He has been good, but it's just sort of, it's what I expected, really. It's what we saw during his time at Everton in terms of, you know, some key standout moments where you think, crikey, there's a player there. But the majority of it is a little bit more, you know, average, really, that we've seen from him. So I think it gives you a little bit of hope that, you know what, if we could keep him for another year, surround him with a few better players and give him a full season, there is some hope there. But at the same time, you know, if he was to go to Barcelona, I think they'd all have a bit of a rude awakening in terms of, you know, the level he's actually at. But no, as you say, I think the formation certainly worked out. Yeah, the Vangioni seemed to have his way down that left flank, didn't he? Which was good. And defensively, Romagnoli, I think he just makes such a difference to the side. I think he just takes the standard up a notch. I think because he is such a classy centre back and obviously controlling it, you know, from the back of the pitch going forward and all the rest. I think he gives confidence to those in front of him. And with Montalivo's experience before, I thought they did a really good job at you know, shutting up shop to allow the other players just to focus on, you know, expressing themselves and creating chances and getting the goals, which worked really well. I think, as you said, Lapadula needs the goals because, you know, energy and effort can get you so far, but you know, in the long run, their strikers are there to get goals and certainly be contributing on that end. And as you said, he's not just this game, he has missed a few sort of sitters over recent weeks. So it's just important that he's tucking, you know, even if it's a goal every other game at the moment, I think that would be enough to warrant him staying as a squad player and offering you something a bit different. But it's as we predicted, really. I think we sort of spoke about it last week. Bologna not really having much to play for. Obviously, a lot for Milan to go at, but you had to get the job done, didn't we? And yeah, it certainly happened. So no, I thought it was a good game, good performance, and pretty professional from the young lads to tie it up before the season's out. So yeah, bravo, lads.
100%. Quick shout out to Matty Fernandez as well. Came off the bench, 2 assists. I thought he was brilliant. Definitely added that little sort of dynamism to get the breakthrough and 3 points. Jace, there was one man, and I think you know what's coming, who didn't impress me and was very disappointing once again. And this relates to you specifically because there was talk after the game that there were some Arsenal scouts there watching him. It's Carlos Bacca.
Yeah.
It seems, even though the system changed, having a man next to him and Lapadula, 2 up front, I'm just not seeing it, Jace. I don't see the build-up play, the hold-up play. I just don't see the attitude really there. There's just not many positives to take away from it, to be honest. For me, I think he's played his last game at the San Siro as a Milan player. What's your take on him generally from that performance and before that, and also suggestion that Arsenal might be interested in him?
Well, I think a player like Bacca, you know, if he's not scoring it, he is going to be very frustrating because he doesn't really do much else within the game. He's not the type of player to get involved in play. So when he's not putting the ball in the back of the net, it's almost as if he's like a passenger to the team. So I think, you know, the fact that he hasn't been scoring of late, it has made him look like he's, you know, just not working at all, which I think is a little bit harsh, but I do understand how his style of play is not suiting Milan. In terms of Arsenal, I'm not sure if he's the type of player I would want at Arsenal. I do probably see why we're looking at him in terms of, you know, talk about Giroud possibly going to Marseille, and they're kind of similar players in that if Giroud's not scoring or getting his head on the end of things, he's not really doing much else. But Bacca as a replacement, I'm not sure. You know, he's a good goal poacher. He had been a good goal poacher in Spain, but in terms of his aerial threat, it's just not there, is it? So,
do you think he would suit the Premier League any more than Serie A, Jace, Bacca?
I do think he would suit the Premier League more. I'm not sure if he'd suit Arsenal. I generally thought,
isn't he?
Yeah, I thought before he went to Milan, he'd probably end up at West Ham. I thought that would be a good shout for him. Maybe a bit late for him now, but I could see him doing a job in the Premier League, just not for the Gunners. But yeah, I do believe it probably has been his last game for Milan, especially with the takeover and these new funds. They kind of need to go out and get some fresh blood, and definitely I think Bacca will be one of those names on the chopping list.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know Jack said Lapadula's got a role to play moving forward, but I remember last week you said he probably would be sold, in your opinion, if he had the choice. The difference is between those two, I think, is that I still believe Lapadula can do that job, that bit part role off the bench, give everybody a lift. I don't see what Baka brings to this team. Like you said, if he's not scoring, then what is he doing?
Yeah.
You've both called for him to have more minutes coming off the bench, which happened last week. But again, it wasn't, inspirational. Baka comes on and all of a sudden we're a different team. I'm struggling to make an argument for him to stay and, what he offers, really.
No,
Yeah.
there's some strikers, isn't there, that they want to be the main man, and if they're not, that they've got no interest in still working hard and all the rest. They live for the goals and the glory. And I think he's that. I think you're concerned. The main thing for him at the minute is he's still going to have plenty of suitors in a variety of leagues. I'm not doubting they'll be interested in. But obviously, if a Chinese club doesn't come for him, the money must have gone down severely. What you could have recouped for him now, surely.
Yeah, that is the fear. I think talk of 20 odd million, maybe in January, even as recently as January. But you think of his goal record since then and his overall sort of lack of contribution to the team. It's not that fee is going to be driven down a lot, I'd imagine.
I could see as well with his wages and things. It's going to be a case of you and clearly him not being seemingly not being a key part of the future. You having to actually try and get rid of him. It might be a loan deal or something like that. Do you know what I mean? If someone's not willing to punt out much more than 10 mil or so, it might be a case that you only loan him out just to get him off the salary books. That's been how bad the form has been in the last few months. But as I said, I think your best hope's probably a Chinese club coming in and not really doing their scouting job properly and just offering 50 mil or something.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. That'd be lovely. If any Chinese clubs are listening, let's put those bids in, boys. But so I think
they're listening. He's amazing. He's the best striker in the world.
So aside from him, another man that we'll talk a bit later because we had a Twitter question about him, but just want to touch on it now. Bertolacci is another one that really frustrated me and is kind of reaching a point now where combine the fact that he's been terrible, he doesn't really do much, he doesn't offer much to the team, and with the fact that we're going to reportedly significantly strengthen the midfield, I just don't see a future for him at the club. I know it's not a direct comparison, Jace, but I know we've spoken about Ozil before, and just in terms of how the game in general, football's changed and gone on, certain players just don't fit into where they're playing and their surroundings and whatnot. I don't see Bertolacci as being a player that can handle or offer enough as a midfielder in the modern day game. He doesn't really have a change of pace. He has decent technical quality, but again, I wouldn't give him the keys to my midfield in a rush. I wouldn't say, right, yep, you're the deep line midfielder, have at it. There's nothing to his game that he works hard, but like Jack mentioned earlier with Lapadula as well, that only gets you so far. I don't really see there's a future for him.
Has he played in a deep line position?
We've tried him out before when he's not injured, which often seems to be the case with him since he moved to us. He has been played there very rarely, but I do recall seeing him a couple of times in the deeper role, and he was okay. He was, like I said, he wasn't like, he's bossing this, he's running the midfield. It was just a 6 out of 10 average sort of performance. So I don't really see where he fits into our plans moving forward, to be quite honest with you. But it's an interesting one.
I think in the position that Milan are in now, players like Bertolacci, there shouldn't really be this kind of willingness, I guess, to maybe to hang on and give him another go. You're in a strong position now with the takeover, just to look at the whole squad and say, okay, in all honesty, is it worth us sticking with this player, or should we move on and take a punt on someone else? I think players like Bertolacci, I see your connection to Ozil, but with Ozil, I think it's a case of he definitely does have quality. He's just been played out of position and maybe not worked enough by the coaching staff and the management team. But with a Bertolacci, I think you look at the range of talent that are across Europe, and you think he can be replaced with someone maybe who's willing to work a bit harder, or someone who's just more suited to Serie A. So I think now is the time when you're looking at maybe making 5 or 6 changes in the summer. Now's the time to go out and find that midfielder that is, that 8 out of 10, as opposed to settling for that 6 out of 10 and hoping that, some weeks he steps up to the plate and kind of hoping that he plays over his kind of ability as opposed to getting someone who's just more able.
Oh, absolutely, I agree. And give me a choice of, say, for example, the names that we were linked with. We talked about last week, likes of Kessie.
Yeah.
He's going to push Bertolacci further down the pecking order.
Well, you've
just
got Kessie now, haven't you? So
exactly. So
yeah.
players like that coming in, I just don't see where Bertolacci goes from here. So, like I said, we'll get into it, and I'll give my final sort of verdict on his future in a bit with the question, but it's not looking promising for him or Bacca. So those are the kind of two negatives from the game at the weekend. A positive to end on that stuff. It was nice to see Patrick Cutrone get his debut. Another youngster come through the youth ranks, so glad to see him get an opportunity, albeit a very limited one. He had I don't think he touched the ball, but he managed to get a booking.
One for the future.
Memorable debut, but we'll never know. No, we'll see him at Cagliari hopefully this weekend a bit more, but that's down to Montella. And boys, I couldn't go further without mentioning the new kit. I'm absolutely in love with it. I've not bought.
I saw you swooning all over it.
I know. I've not bought a Milan top for a good number of years now. I think it's about 5-6 years. But I saw that bad boy, and it's ordered. It's on the way. I've gone for it. So looking forward to seeing that on a more regular basis next season.
Pretty snazzy, isn't it? No, I did quite like it. I think not sure Maldini has anything to worry about when it comes to Lapadula stealing his Milan heartthrob status. But in all those pictures that you were posting all over my timeline and whatnot. But no, yeah, mate, it looks nice. And hopefully a couple of star names that you can chuck on the back of it. Fingers crossed.
Absolutely. Very much a throwback sort of classic. I think I watched a video from Milan basically suggesting that, it's a throwback. It's to the old great teams that we had over the years in the 90s and 80s, and it definitely gets the tick from me. So good stuff on that front. Obviously, boys, with the win, a sixth pot is a done deal. Europa League football next season. It's the first time, and I think everyone was pretty happy with it based on the scenes that we saw after the game. Montella getting thrown up in the air, which was all very nice. Just to sort of paint the picture and give everyone an idea of how this is going to work now. So Milan have confirmed that they're going to cut short their pre-season tour in China. They're going to come back for the qualifiers. So July 14th, we find out.
It's nice of them.
Yeah, nice to know that.
It's annoying in one way because we were scheduled to play Inter. So we've had to cancel that one, which is, I'm sure, a shame for the Chinese fans over there who are probably looking forward to a derby, but nevertheless, so the draw for the third round of the qualifiers is on July 14th, and then you've got the first and second leg on July 27th and August the 3rd, and then you've got the playoff draw which goes into August and obviously the start of the Serie A season thereafter. Jack, last week you made a very passionate and appealing sort of argument to say that stop messing around, there's no argument, get into Europe, happy days, there is no negative side to it. A lot of fans that I saw on Twitter were happy, including me. I was absolutely chuffed that we're back in Europe, albeit in the qualifiers at this stage, but still. But there's still a few that almost seemed embarrassed as to how happy and how a lot of other fans were celebrating the fact that we've got into the Europa League. I'm assuming your opinion hasn't changed in a week, but do you see that argument at all on that side of things? Like a club of Milan's stature with their history in the Champions League, is it at all an embarrassment to kind of be revelling in the fact that we've qualified for the Europa League?
No, I don't think so at all. I think it's, I think there's some football fans out there that, if you don't win the league, everything else is a disappointment. There's sort of no big picture. It's black and white. It's, the very top or nothing else sort of thing. And I think that's a really, I think it's just a narrow-minded way to look at it, really. No disrespect to people like that, because obviously a club like Milan are used to being up there, and obviously it's you're a little way away from those heavy heights. But building processes, that there's certain hurdles and certain stages that you've got to go through. You don't just go from being a mid-table team to a title-winning team just because you're called Milan. Do you know what I mean? You've got to get there, especially when you're doing it organically and with all the other off-field issues and things like that you've had. And this team getting into Europe, as you said, first time in how many years? Was it 5? No.
3 years.
3 years. First time in 3 years and things like that. do you know what I mean? It's the first step on the path. You should be excited and all the rest of it. What do they want you to get into the Champions League and be considered, one of the minnows of the Champions League, getting absolutely, hammered left, right, and centre, 6-0, 7-0 with this sort of side? That's what would happen, sort of thing. So Europa League's the right place for this team at this time. And don't get me wrong, it is a longer process. The tournament is obviously long, especially when you do these qualifiers. But in just over a month, what is it, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, you guys are going to have competitive football to be watching, rather than the knockarounds that they have pre-season, when it's, walking football that's going on most of the time, where you're not learning anything about your team. It's, it's just one of those where it's all just about the Benjamins and the money for people, isn't it? And that side of it. But so you're going to get some competitive football, and you win a couple of them. Everyone loves a draw. Who doesn't love seeing who you're going to get drawn against? And in these legs, it's going to be some absolute hilarity of teams. This is when you get Camel United from I don't know, some weird places like that. And but it gets you closer to that stage where you can get drawn. And do you know what I mean? You could get, we joke about, you could get Arsenal in a group. You could get, some I don't know, some big Spanish club, and all of a sudden you're thinking, oh, that's a fixture I'm really looking forward to, and I can't wait to see us play them. So, do you know what I mean? As I said, I think it's just that sort of mindset of, I guess lots of big clubs, United are going through it at the moment, and there'll be times when Real Madrid don't win the league for X amount, and do you know what I mean? It is that sort of, you're used to winning the league and being in the Champions League and being this superstar. But Milan have you haven't just tailed off for one season and all the rest. You've dropped down, and now you're building back up. And I think this is a really important step that in 2-3 years you'll look back as a key moment to show what these players and this management and all the rest of it can get us over the line and keep us stepping forward, which is what you want to be doing.
Couldn't agree more. My only reservation, like I said, I am happy to be in the Europa League. I'm absolutely delighted to be back in Europe, and like I said, the games in July and August, I'm looking forward to them already. But the only problem that I have, and obviously it will change over the summer hopefully with the spending, is just fleshing out this squad. I think we need a lot more depth, a lot more quality to even be in a position to be playing those games before the Serie A season kicks off. And then especially if we get through Thursday night games, Thursday weekends, this squad is definitely not strong enough, big enough to sort of cope with that at the moment. So that's a major concern for me, but that hopefully, like I said, will change over the course of the next few weeks.
It is a struggle, obviously, I've got quite a lot of years behind me following in the Europa and stuff, and it is a concern, and it is, there's no two ways about the reservation, but there's not enough played on the positivity that can come from it as well in terms of momentum. All of a sudden you win away on the Thursday, then you've got an easy game on the weekend, you win that, and then you win again, in the Europa League. And all of a sudden you're on a 3-4 game winning streak, and everyone's buzzing, everyone's feeling good, and all the rest of it. So it can actually help sometimes as well, and it gives you a chance for, if your striker's a bit goal shy, to go up against some semi-pro, Butcher or something like that, and knock a few past them and build up the confidence and stuff like that. So there are positives to it as well. But as you said, you've just got to have that depth of squad and such. But that's quite needed for league campaigns and stuff like that at the minute. How many injuries, how many red cards have Milan had this year? I've certainly lost count.
About 6 on his own. So
yeah, he's got more cards than I got at Christmas. It's like, so you need a big squad anyway for the league. So there's always tests, but you're going to have that if you get into the Champions League the next year and things like that. So it's a good chance for you to build and get used to that. That's for certain.
Definitely, Jace. You're obviously. Yeah. I don't want to remind you of it, but you're
in the
obviously
same boat as you, mate.
Exactly. I'll get your thoughts on the Europa League. I know we spoke about it last week, but just as a reminder to kind of talk about the Europa League itself. But just on that point of the squads, I know it's been a while. I remember one year you went through the qualifiers for the Champions League, didn't you? You played Udinese, I think, in a playoff game.
Yes.
You won that.
We also played Celtic.
Oh yeah, of course. But just in terms of the squad, having a big enough squad to cope with both competitions, and obviously having those competitive games just as the Premier League starting. What's your take on that? And obviously, as I mentioned, Milan are obviously far from being in a position to kind of boast that massive squad to be able to cope with everything at the moment.
Well, I think you do need the squad there, just in case, like you say, playing more games. The length of time between games is obviously shorter now, so you likely to pick up more injuries. But in terms of squad changes, I think with Arsenal, we hardly make changes between, our Champions League games and our league games. Same with a team like Chelsea. I think Chelsea would almost certainly, if all their players were available, they wouldn't change teams unless it was the end of the group stages and they're already through. They wanted to give some younger players or some of the kind of reserve players a bit of a run out. But I think it's important for Milan to get the players in, just to have them there, like you say, just in case there are injuries, just in case during the game you want to make a tactical change as well. I think that's the thing about playing midweek on a Thursday and then having to play on a Sunday again. You're there. Teams are watching you more, scouting you more. They're setting up differently, especially in Europe. I mean, it's a whole different ballpark to playing in the league. I think there's different aims from the opposition. A lot of these games, you get past the group stage, these games are knockout. So teams are going to have to go for it, as opposed to the league. You may be up against a team that is just happy to get an away point. So you'd have to approach the game differently. I think having the squad and having the versatility of players in that instance is very important. And it's something that Milan need to do. I don't think it's imperative to have the squad sorted before your first qualifier. I think, the game should be easy enough at this stage for Milan to breeze through. But it's important, I think, to have the whole squad there at the start of the season, so everyone's on the same page with, we're going to attack the league, we're going to attack the Europa League as a unit, and we're going to try and do the best we can in both competitions.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know what the situation is with the Premier League. You might be able to help me out, either of you. But in Italy, there's a sense that they sort of scheduling of the games, they do help out the teams in Europe. We've seen it with Juve. They've played on a Friday night quite a few times, and there's obviously a Monday night game in Serie A as well most weekends. But I think that might be a help, depending on obviously how the Liga kind of fix that up and change things around. If Milan are playing every Thursday, then I'm assuming that we'll get a helping hand in that sense and be given the Monday night game or something like that, Sunday night game for sure. But I think there's a bit more flexibility in Italy in that sense to give the teams that get into Europe a bit of help. So
I think with the Premier League, it all depends on what's going on with the title race, because I think they like to televise the important games, as it were. So, I mean, this season, when we were battling for top four and when Tottenham were battling for the league, you saw a lot of the games. I don't know if you noticed this, Jack, but a lot of the games that were scheduled for Arsenal on a Saturday suddenly changed to a Sunday evening, or we didn't have many Monday games, but I know Tottenham, a lot of those games were moved to Monday. Chelsea, I know a lot of those games were moved to Monday just to make the title race a bit more interesting. So
there's something in the TV rights where top six get priority rights and they can shift games, and that's why you see scheduling. But Sumit, you are right. Across Europe, it's actually quite, again, because we hear this a lot when I've been watching it, and the commentators and whatnot have said that across Europe they actually do more. They quite often it is the Monday. It's a Thursday Monday, whilst in England you play Thursday Sunday, and quite often you can play Sunday lunchtime, and that's the problem as well. Sometimes the thing from Italy and such is, you might be traveling up to Russia and there could be, 4 or 5 hours, 6 hour flights or whatever. But I think certainly La Liga and such, and that's why, Seville are obviously renowned for their prowess in Europa and stuff, but because they just drop players, they don't actually care about the league as much, because obviously it's not as competitive right at the top and things, and then field a full strength team, for Europa, and then they get 3-4 days rest and stuff. So I think across Europe it is actually suited, because the television rights aren't quite as stingent as obviously Premier League being the most watched league in the world. It's a little bit more, they have to adhere to the set slots.
True. Still not the best league in the world, Jack, but I'll give you that much. Fair enough. No, fair enough. Good stuff. Well, we'll have to see. I'm not, counting my chickens. Let's just get through the 2 qualifying rounds first, and then we'll deal with the Thursday night headache after that. But no, good stuff. Just very quickly, I want to rate the season. I know we've got another game left, but pretty much all is said and done, so we might as well do this now. I went with a poll. Jack will be happy to know. I basically just wrapped it up in the sense that we won the Supercoppa against Juventus, so silverware in the bag. Got back into Europe, which was one of the main objectives before the season. I don't really think it was ever a case of top 3 as in Champions League, but whether it was 4th, 5th, 6th, whatever, the point was to get back into Europe, which is now almost done. Again, obviously qualifiers. And then you've obviously got the added bonus of finishing above Inter, who have been dreadful to end the season since we scored that last-minute equaliser, actually, in the derby. I think they've just completely collapsed since then. So finishing above them is always nice to see as well. For me, like I said, I don't think there was any more that we could have done. Obviously, yeah, finish 4th or 5th. Atalanta have had a great season. Lazio have been great, so no arguments there. Got back into Europe, beat Juve in a massive game, finished above Inter. For me, that's a good season where we are at the moment. Obviously, expectations will change as we go through the next couple of years, but at the moment where we are, I'm pretty happy with that. I'll get both your thoughts in a second, but just to give you the poll results, 73% of those that voted said they were happy with this season and the results, so it seems like a lot of people agree. Jace, come to you first. Again, as I said, in context with where Milan are at the moment, would you consider that to be a successful season for them?
I think you got to. I mean, like you say, this season made it back into Europe after 3 years out. So, I think if any season, if you make progress on the season before, especially when Milan haven't gone out and spent a load of money, a lot of players are in on loan. The financial restrictions were still there at the start of the season. So to have all that and then to come in, like you say, finish ahead of your rivals, get back into Europe for the first time in 3 years, I don't see how you can say that's not a successful season. I can understand maybe people's hopes were a bit higher, maybe thinking about possibly getting back into the Champions League. But, like Jack said earlier, sometimes it's small steps, and I think getting back into Europe is definitely a big plus.
Yep, I'd echo all those thoughts. Jack, you in agreement?
Yeah, mate, I voted happy for sure. I think you've got to, just look at if you were offered that at the start of the season, I think you'd be pretty crazy if you turned it down. Do you know what I mean? If you came in and expectations were too far beyond that, I think, that they're always altering as the season goes on. But as you said, I think that's almost the pinnacle of what you can achieve. There are things to be unhappy about as we've gone over week in, week out, some sloppy results, obviously not quite the balance in the formation and how the teams play, and some underperforming players and things like that. But in terms of success, it might not have been the eye-catching, exciting manner of getting there that we'd like. But as you said, sort of getting back into Europe, finishing above Inter, bragging rights is huge, isn't it? Certainly in a two-team city and things like that. And I definitely think that's a good season.
Yep, definitely. Like I said, things will change now moving forward, I'm sure, with new ownership, money to spend. Everyone will be pining for a top 3 finish next season, I'm sure. But for now, I'm content. It's a good season in my books, so good stuff. It wouldn't be a podcast without discussing transfer talk. There's been plenty of it again this week. Just to start off with something that's kind of almost done now. Matteo Musacchio had his medical this week. We expected him to be announced officially as well, but that's been delayed till the end of the season. So he's pretty much a done deal, but we'll have to wait for the official sort of announcement from the club. But I'm happy with that. First signing of the new era, new partner for Alessio Romagnoli. If Montella goes back to a back 4, back 3, Gomez is an option there, Paletta for depth. Plenty of options there, but as a first signing, definitely happy with Musacchio. Jack, I think you mentioned on last week's podcast he was linked with Tottenham a while ago, but from what you've seen, just as a reminder for those that maybe didn't catch us last week, good solid signing for the defence?
Yeah, really good signing. And I think it's really important that you're addressing weak areas. You could have gone out and signed a striker or something or waited for that first, but it shows, that you're going to be looking to build the squad the right way. And I think he's going to be great. He can be a bit of an enforcer type alongside Romagnoli right away. You know, they are fairly similar in terms of, you know, they're both pretty smooth and classy on the ball and such. And you know, there is talk of you want the right balance between centre backs, one classy, one sort of knee snapper or something like that. But I think these two will really form a great partnership. You know, as I said, when he was linked with us a few years back, I was really following him, and he really did look sort of the real deal, as it were. And I don't know, you know, I can't say I've done quite as much over the last 12 to 18 months or so, but at that time he looked good, right sort of age. You know, he's a bit of a leader and a captain, and I think with those two at the back, it'll certainly be give you a great platform to build off.
Good stuff. There you go. I'm even happier now. Good man. Jace, the thing that struck me the most was that I was just happy that there was images and videos of him actually undergoing the medical, actually seeing someone on the verge of signing for the club. As I've said over the last couple of weeks now with the transfer talk, there's just been constant stream of speculation. 1 minute people are saying, yeah, he's close to a deal. Next minute, no, actually Milan are going for someone else. Masaccio was actually at the training centre today doing his second part of his medical. By all accounts, it's a done deal. He's on his way. I think that's the most refreshing kind of thing, isn't it? After listening to so much talk, to finally see one of your signings rock up. That's the kind of start that you want to see, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, in the age of, you know, the media we have, you're getting so much information, and it's a lot of it, like you say, is contradictory. It kind of messes with your emotions a bit. You know what I mean? You kind of you want this story to be true, but then someone else has come out and said, "Oh no, it's not happening." And just to see some actual evidence that 100% he's going to sign, it kind of it relieves a bit of pressure. I feel. Do you know, when I'm looking at transfer speculation and you see something concrete, you think, yeah, got that one in the bag, and it's a nice feeling.
Absolutely. No, really happy with that. Obviously, ongoing talk. The two that we've spoken about before, and the two that are really sort of on the verge, if you like, compared to the sort of fleeting speculation with others, is Ricardo Rodriguez for the left-back position, and of course my man Frank Kessie for the midfield. So hoping there's developments there. I think Rodriguez got held up because Wolfsburg are in a Bundesliga relegation playoff or something, so I think we're going to have to wait for that one. But yeah, end of the season, I'm sure those two should be on their way. Just as a mini roundup, Keita Balde and Lucas Biglia from Lazio were linked this week in a €40 million double deal, apparently. But again, don't know who to believe. Next minute, we're looking for two other players, so not sure how much strength we give that. But then there's one area I think that I'd like to kind of focus on before we move on from transfers. Jack, I'll come to you first with this, but three names in particular linked with being the sort of focal point, main man up front now are emerging. I think this is the one where we're going to make a proper marquee signing. I think obviously Kessie in his own right, Masaccio in his own right are top signings, but this is the one where we're looking to kind of make headlines, I think. The three names that keep popping up, Belotti, Morata and Aubameyang. In your opinion, out of those three, if you had the choice, if you had the means to go out and buy them, let's just put transfer fees aside, who would you sort of be more comfortable with building your team around in that sense?
Three very good players there, isn't it? You know, three good names to be linked with, certainly. As you said, gets you any one of them is a drastic upgrade from what you've got. I think Aubameyang is probably the most proven in terms of he's been doing it for pretty consistent for years. He's got just that raw pace that's just, do you know what I mean? It's one of those traits you just can't teach. And I think he's probably, so far the most established. But if I was to choose one for Milan for next year, I'd actually go for Morata. I think Belotti has obviously had a great year this year and looked very impressive. But I think, Morata obviously did it for Juventus. And I just think his ceiling might be a little bit higher. I think he's just got a little bit more potentially to his game than Belotti. And he just got the Milan look for me. I think I said it a couple of weeks back as well, obviously the sort of Kakars of this world and all the rest. But I just think he's got that sort of Milan-esque player about him to really go there and be the lead guy to really sort of elevate you guys to that next level. So I think that's who I would go for, if I'm honest. I think Aubameyang is unbelievable, as I said, and his pace and all the rest of it. But I think he might not be quite the sort of player that you want at the moment, because you've got quite a bit of pace and such down the wings. I think maybe just a bit more of a just more traditional type striker might be better suited. And I just think Morata brings a lot to the table. I really was impressed by him at Juventus. Obviously at Real Madrid, he's never quite cracked it and got ahead of, the superstars that are over there at the minute. And I just think he would come in and do a lot. As I said, all three of them are excellent. But if I was in charge and I was forced to go for one, I think I'd pull the trigger on Morata.
No, decent call. Jace, just before I come to you, I did another poll.
Surprise to me.
Yeah, just to give those results, and I'll obviously reveal who I would have gone for. But the poll, 45% said Belotti, 26% said Morata, 23% said Aubameyang, and 6% said other. Just to start on Belotti, I think that's more of a sentimental choice for some people. I think, again, I'm not explaining people's choices, but he's well publicised. He's a Milan fan. He's Italian. He's burst through in Serie A. I can see the argument for it and completely understand, but there's just something, again, I'd love to sign him, but I just don't think maybe, in terms of proving it over a significant period of time, there's some reservations there. So maybe not him, but I actually agree with Jack. I just feel analysing it and assessing it a bit closer, I think Morata probably brings more all-round to the table, and specifically why I would have gone for him, I think, in terms of how Montella plays, the system he plays, the way that, the role that he wants from his main striker, I think Morata fits the bill perfectly in that sense. So he gets my vote. But Jace, if you had a pick out of those three, or someone else, if you want to bring someone else to the party, who would you go for?
Before you said all that, Belotti was my pick. I think I'm still going to stick with him. Aubameyang was my... If I was to rank them in order, I would put Belotti top, Morata, and then Aubameyang. Again, Aubameyang is a great player. I just don't think out of those three, he'll be the best suited to the Serie A. And he was there, wasn't he, at Milan before, and it didn't really work out for him.
Yeah, well, he didn't really get a chance, to be honest. He was young at that point. We never gave him a shot and then sent him out on loan and sold him. But yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
My only thing with going for Belotti is, Morata was amazing for Juve. But, I mean, Juve are the best team in Italy by far. And Belotti's kind of, I know it hasn't been a long period of time, but he's proven himself in that league with a very average team. Yeah. And he is an AC Milan fan. The fact that he can score goals in the league, the fact that he is Italian, and, I know if I was a top striker, which is far-fetched, but if I was a top striker and I had the chance to play for Arsenal, I know that my game is going up, that extra 10, 20%, because this is the shirt I wanted to wear my whole entire life. So I think having that extra motivation and the fact that he is a top scorer in the league already, I'd see him being a massive hit in Milan, to be honest.
I think you've changed my mind now, Jay.
I think that's a really good point from Jason in terms of obviously the level of where you're able to pick it up. I think my thing with Belotti is, as I said, this season's been incredible, but his scoring record before that wasn't anything at all, was it, really, to sort of sing and dance about? And it's just, I think what I would say with all three of those is they're not dead certs. I think they could all come in and all of them, in theory, could do really well. But I think there is risk. I don't think they're risk-free signings. I do think a Benzema or a Cavani towards the end of his career, I think someone like that is a little bit more, this person's definitely going to come in and score 20 goals plus and be the lead guy and all the rest of it. I think, for mega money, I think there's people out there that you might get a bit more of a sure thing from, but they might not be the longer term project and such. But I think that's a really good point from Jason in terms of Morata's only known superstar training fields and superstar, colleagues and stuff like that on the pitch. But as I said, I don't know if it's because he looks a bit like Kaká or whatever it is. It's something I could just picture him in that nice new shiny kit and looking good.
No, good stuff. Well, fingers crossed one of them comes, at least. I don't want to be stuck with Bacca next season, so let's wait and see who they get. Jack, I think you'll enjoy this one rumour that I picked out from the bunch this week. Apparently, I have seen it, but I still don't believe it, even though I think my eyes are deceiving me. But apparently, Luka Modric has liked a couple of Milan Instagram posts. There was one of the choreography before the game on Sunday he liked, and there was another one which I'm not quite sure what it was. But all of a sudden, apparently, liking Instagram pics now is a certain way of getting linked to a club. But that's fantasy football, is it not?
Mate, you don't need me to tell you how highly I rate him. I think it'd be one of the signs of the season if you're able to get him. He's unbelievable and will give a whole new look to the team. It seems far-fetched, but I can see some truth in it. Just as, Real like to blow it up and go out and sign mega stars and they've just gone out and spent 38 million quid on a 16-year-old. I don't know if you've seen that today, which is bonkers. And they have got a few young, impressive centre mids coming through of their own at the minute. So it's not out of the realm. They've obviously got rid of Ozil, Rabin. It's endless, isn't it? The amount of seemingly quality players that Real Madrid have moved on, as they're in their sort of peak, as it were. So, it'd remind me of when Liverpool sold Xabi Alonso a bit too early and he went on to still be a force. If you manage to get Modric, I really think, I know there was talk of Fabregas and there's some interest there, but, I can't tell you how highly I rate, Modric. He's right up there with you. Obviously now there's Cruz and Busquets, but Xavi's and stuff like that, he's an absolute game changer if you manage to get him. And I don't know if he's got any affiliation to Milan and why he's on Instagram and all that, but if it could happen, bloody hell, push for that as much as you can.
Yeah,
him and Kessie. Oh,
I know. I was thinking that in my head, and then Bonaventura midfield 3. That'd be an absolute dream. But there was a picture of him doing the rounds, I think, as well. He was wearing a Milan shirt when he was younger. I genuinely don't know who he supports or anything like that, but that could be anything.
I can tell you, I know when he was younger, from when him and Luka were at Spurs, they gave a good story about how they used to have to make wooden shin pads to play on the streets because they were obviously really poor and from Croatia and things like that. So they used to play in war-stricken Croatia with wooden shin pads and things like that. Wow. So when you're like, I don't know if he could have afforded a Milan shirt back then, but it's as I said, it's a fun fair out there at the minute, isn't it? In terms of names, it's just sort of throw a dart and see what name it hits, and let's get a rumour out there.
Exactly. No, very true. But Musacchio first, and then we'll see who else follows. Just to kind of wrap up the transfer talk, a couple of things that have caught my eye this week, which have kind of given me a positive feeling. CEO Marco Fasone came out with some comments this week, which I thought were very interesting. Just quickly read them for you. Over the next few years, we won't have exceptional financial health precisely because we'll be spending these huge sums, whatever that means. We still have a year of economic sacrifice, which means another negative balance sheet, which we hope can bring immediate results. I've assured the shareholders there will be a wage limit and it will be kept under control. And we know how UEFA check revenue and expect certain percentages. Jace, come to you as well just on this. And I'll also add that there's a report today that the Chinese government are relaxing their rules on foreign investment, and apparently that will give Yonghong Lee the kind of freedom to, well, I don't know whether to return specifically to the plans that he had originally with his other investors from China, but I'm assuming that he'll go back and knock on a few doors and try and get that back in place to what it was. But just on those comments from Fasone, I think the reason why I was so positive on it was that he obviously he made the headline-making comment that they're going to spend these huge sums, but then to combine that with, we understand that there's going to be a negative balance sheet. We're prepared for it. Yeah. We're going to keep control of the wages. We know what UEFA are expecting of us. That sounds like an all-round, well-rounded sort of argument and assessment of the situation, though.
Yeah, it sounds like he's thought about it. I mean, he's probably looked at, seen, what players are going for nowadays, and the fact that I think he probably feels you do need to add maybe 5, possibly 6 players to want to, challenge to be pretty high up next year and to challenge for Europe as well. I think he's probably looked at it and thought, an average player nowadays is £30 million. Like, you want a top player, you're looking at 50, 60, especially in the positions you're looking for, midfield attacking wise. So I think he realises, they're going to have to invest a lot at one time. Could go up into the 200 million mark, possibly maybe even more than that. So I think they're braced for that, but obviously they're thinking they don't want to put the club in too much debt. So, keep wages under wraps, and let's wait till we are challenging for the top spot before we start giving out £100,000, 150, £200,000 or euros, contracts. So I think it's very smart. It shows he's thought about it. It shows there's a plan in place. It's quite impressive.
Yep, absolutely. And then Jack, just to move on to the next kind of thing that I wanted to talk about, a couple of quotes from the players. Suso mentioned that with about 5 or 6 additions, he believes that this team's going to be very competitive. Didn't sort of go further in the sense that, we're definitely going to be challenging for the Serie A title and whatnot, but he believes that with those additions we'll be competitive. And then specifically, just to get your reaction to this, Montella's been talking about Donnarumma's future. He said, "I love Donnarumma like a son, but he must make a choice and understand what he wants to do to grow up. The club are doing everything to keep him." In my opinion, that is literally the most perfect sort of approach that he can take to the situation. Milan are putting their best offer on the table. They're saying, look, we're building this squad. We're going to look to be competitive. We can't give you guarantees that we're going to be, but look at the calibre of players we're bringing in. If you want to be a part of this, fantastic. Sign a new contract. You're going to be a pillar of our success. If you don't want to be involved, if you feel like there's a better offer somewhere else, crack on, enjoy yourself, and that'll be that. Any arguments with the way that Montella's approached that?
No, none whatsoever. As you said, I think that's the way to do it, isn't it? It's blunt, it's to the point. It's giving him a cuddle, giving him a kiss, but at the same time, a little clip around the ear saying, "Listen, that's it." Do you know what I mean? Like, don't be silly. Look how good this offer is. Look what's around you. Look what the future holds. If that's not enough to stay, to sway you to stay, then so be it. There's other goalkeepers out there. They might not quite have the potential. They might not quite have the 22-foot arm length and things like that. But there's other goalies out there. But we're planning for the future. We want you to be a part of it. But if you're not committed to that, we'll plan for someone else to be. So I think it's definitely best way of dealing that for sure.
100%. No complaints with me on that. Just a couple of Twitter questions that came in this week. So obviously, as I mentioned earlier, about Bertolacci was one. Shout out to Miles, Jack, you remember him, at MD Coop 3. He's obviously been on the Tottenham podcast as well. He just wants to know, in your opinion, is Bertolacci just not good enough, or is it a bad scheme fit? Have injuries hurt him? I do believe system-wise and injuries have definitely played a part, but as I mentioned earlier, I just don't see him. Just a style of player that he is. I just don't see how he excels in a top team. I can see him doing a good job, solid job, mid-table team, but from what we expect of our midfielders in both sort of the defensive and attacking sense, I don't think he brings enough to the table. And, as Jason mentioned earlier as well, he's very replaceable. So I personally believe either he drops down the pecking order, is there for depth, or we move him on this summer and look elsewhere. So that's the end for Bertolacci for me. And then Francisco Zenteno, you can find him at CalcioHacky16. He asked, should Milan fans still be sceptical of the new ownership, or the fact that they are getting new players this early show that we can trust them? Again, I'd like to see more sort of official announcements and players holding up shirts and all that fun stuff before I kind of give them the tick. But what I've seen with Masaccio, what I'm hearing about Kessie and all that, I think we're getting to a point now where certain players are going beyond the stage of speculation, and Milan are kind of putting their money where their mouth is. So I'm still sceptical until we actually sign these players, but my trust is building, and I think I'm pretty happy with the situation at the moment. So all pointing in the right direction, and we'll have to see how we get on. Boys, Cagliari Milan to finish things off this weekend. Another Serie A season over. I don't really know what I want from this game. I'm almost tempted to say, give the likes of Honda a run out, sort of switch it up, and 6th place is booked, it's done. I'm not really that fussed. It'd be nice to end with a win, obviously, but whether Montella sort of experiments a little bit, I'm happy with that. But yeah, end to the season, so fingers crossed, see how we get on, but 3 points would be nice, and Cutrone maybe, a few more minutes on the pitch would be good. And then obviously just quick...
There could be a few players playing for their future, couldn't there? Do you know what I mean? There could be, it's that last chance hurrah, isn't it? To sort of either put them in the shop window, put them in for a new contract, or convince Montella that that they are someone that can contribute moving forward. So I don't think there's any gimme games. Obviously the Premier League wrapped up this weekend, and you looked around and there was quite a few fun pins going on, and I just looked at those clubs like, what are these players thinking? Do you know what I mean? Like they've got to play for their future. They've got to, give more than that at any time. Because
do you think Montella sort of knows though who he wants to keep and who he's? Do you think
there'd be people that are 50-50s. I think there's still 50-50s out there.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
Yeah.
I think he might have, by this point, like we've mentioned, I think the likes of Baka, I think he's kind of judged that and said, yeah, we're definitely going to bring in a striker. I think that's the end of that one. But you never know. People like Bertolacci, Fernandez is on a short-term deal, whether or not he does enough to earn a longer one. Sosa, players like that. I think there's definitely a case to be made there. I'm also looking, hopefully, Locatelli, Calabria, people like that, the youngsters who have been linked with loan moves elsewhere, starting next season. If they get a run out, fingers crossed they can put in a good performance to end the season. So certainly various talking points, but yeah, I think we're all winding down and 6th place is done, so we'll see.
Get your speedos on.
Yeah, it's time to get ready for the Europa League, boys. Just forget this game out of the way.
Yeah.
What this does mean, though, is that with all the other leagues finished, you can focus your entire attention on Serie A this weekend, which is a treat for both of you. Jace, just a word on Juventus. Obviously wrapped up the title at the weekend. I think my assessment was table doesn't lie. Deserved winners, again, for the 6th time in a row. Impressed with them and deserved winners.
Very much so, very much so. I mean, we talked about Allegri before, and he seemed to be, bang on it with, we need X amount of points. Let's go out there, let's get it done. And you got to say, if you go into the season with the aim of winning it and you achieve that, then, what can be said but well done. They've been great. Obviously, 6th title on the spin, 3rd for Allegri. I think, they know what they need to do. They lost Pogba in the summer, obviously, replaced him, and it's not even like it's been missed, has it? They've just gone about their business and done what they needed to do. Absolutely.
Well, that's the shocking thing. I thought, losing Pogba might have given him a jolt in midfield, caused him a couple of problems, but obviously hasn't, and especially in Europe in particular. It's shocking to see them in the final, to be honest, but much deserved. Jack, just a word on Juve. Impressed with them. I'm obviously not happy about the domination continuing, but can't help but sort of admire their winning mentality and streak.
I was glad it was a race, I'm glad there was a bit of competition in there and such, it's never nice when it's a runaway, is it? But yeah, very much deserved winners. I think, like Jay sort of mentioned there, I think people need to give them even more credit to their sort of transferability as well. That they lost Pogba, they obviously lost Vidal last year. They had Tevez and Morata who were sort of lead guys for them, and they've changed the whole look of the side. But I actually think they've become a more attractive team to watch as well. I think this year, the football that they're playing, with Pjanic in midfield and obviously the wide players, Dani Alves coming in and giving them that incredible go forward from right back, and then Higuain and Dybala up top are incredible as well. So I think they're amazing, and they've got stars all over the pitch. They've obviously got a bit of a monopoly on the Serie A talent and such, but they get the best out of them when they arrive. And as we've said when we've been talking about the Champions League, as a whole team and a whole togetherness and united squad, they're right up there with the best that we've seen certainly this year and in recent years. Really, really enjoyable team to watch, and a force to be reckoned with, really.
Yep, echo those sentiments. 2 down, 1 to go in that sense. They've done the domestic double, so all eyes on Champions League final against Madrid now. See if they can do the last leg of that treble, but definitely deserved. Well played to them. Full credit to Allegri as well. Great to see him pick up another title. Right, boys, I think that wraps us up this week. Jack, always a pleasure.
Yeah, great to be here. As I said, delighted again. And for anybody that's not excited for Europa, believe me, get into it. As I said, you're going to get to watch your team play more competitive football, and enjoy the ride. You never know how long it will go on for.
Come on, love it, Jack. Good man. Jace, always a pleasure, mate.
Yeah, always good.
Good man. Nothing else but to say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye to the people.